what we like to think of as the potential for even a functional cure. In the case of food allergy, we hope that we can control the disease to the extent that you can have what we think of as food freedom. It stays down, even with that single dose, up to and beyond 14 weeks. For CUE-221, it's the phase 2 data in CSU patients that's coming out in the second half of the year. The two deals both have been on the order of $2 billion, and they were both M&A. And so that really sets the benchmark and gives you a sense of the enthusiasm within the context of this area.
Welcome to The Upside with Lou Basenese, where we endeavor to find asymmetric upside opportunities in any market for you. And today, it is my pleasure to have with us the president and CEO, newly appointed, of CUE Biopharma, Dr. Shao-Lee Lin. Welcome to The Upside.
Thank you, Lou. Pleasure to be here.
Listen, I've been following CUE for a very long time. I've aged, but I am excited about your arrival and all the changes that have happened coming along with that. So for someone that's new to CUE, that doesn't know anything about it, why don't you bring us up to speed? What's CUE doing now? What are the changes that really happened, the biggest developments in the last couple months?
Yeah, thanks for that, Lou. CUE's fundamentally a really exciting place to be right now. I would describe it as being transformed actively into an immunology-focused biotech. We've got a couple of clinical stage portfolio programs that I'd love to talk to you about. And I think those programs really provide the company with the potential for some near-term inflections within the upcoming calendar year that are tremendously exciting and real opportunities for the company and for shareholders and patients.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely can feel that and see it in the news announcements. I think the first time we spoke, you told me that your background, you're really like a drug hunter. You're going out looking for unique opportunities that you can advance further in the clinic, bring to the clinic. Can you just describe some of that background? What are some of the things you've done before and how did it lead you to CUE?
Yeah, that's a great origin story for how we got here with regards to CUE. At the core, my team and I are a small group of drug hunters. We spent our careers looking for and developing new medicines that we believe have the potential to truly transform patients' lives, not just make incremental improvements, but really make a transformative difference. And during my years in large pharma, for instance, finding one truly exceptional program in a given year would certainly be success. In this particular case, we found two.
Okay.
So in the course of the
which were the two? Was it you because you came on board and you brought 221 with you in or orchestrated the arrival of 221, and then what was the other asset that CUE already had that you really liked?
So CUE-221 for allergic disease, and then the other asset exactly was CUE-401.
Okay.
And so we've been drug hunting, and those two were the programs that really stood out as having exceptional and potentially transformative potential for patients. And so we imagined that the two of them together, if that could be a possibility, would be an amazing portfolio that was immunology focused, that covered the gamut of different kinds of diseases within the context of immunology. From a business perspective, spanned both later clinical stage as well as earlier clinical stage, and made sense as a potential offering.
So let's talk about CUE-221 first. Just what's the indication? What's different than the standard of care? And then the upcoming catalyst, because I think that's what's got a lot of people excited.
Yeah. So CUE-221 is what we call an anti-IgE program. It's targeting allergic diseases, things like it's in a phase 2 study currently for chronic urticaria, which means patients who have hives all the time. It's just incredibly miserable.
I'm glad you clarified because I would not have known what chronic urticaria is.
Yeah. Other allergic or IgE-mediated diseases include like allergic asthma, atopic dermatitis. Food allergy is one that is an incredibly growing problem and IgE is very central as a core mechanism to that disease. So this is a molecule that has the potential to really make a difference to these sorts of disease states. There are only two approved therapies right now, FDA-approved therapies. One is Xolair and the other is biosimilar to Xolair. Incredibly successful. On the order of $4 billion, over $4 billion actually in terms of peak sales currently, which really gives you a sense of both the magnitude of unmet need, but also the potential there.
How do you differentiate in that market? $4 billion already maturing treatment. What makes it different that you can do that would be a better drug if it's successful?
Yeah, what's fascinating about 221 is, I mean, what you do is you make a better mousetrap, right? Yeah. It was actually developed by the folks who made Xolair as a next generation molecule. Not only does it have the same neutralizing capability of the current marketed products, but it has a second mechanism as well that takes advantage of the natural feedback loop for downregulation of synthesis of new IgE when there's a lot of it around.
Okay, so this is a second mechanism that Xolair doesn't have in the biosimilar. So this would very much distinguish you if it proves out in the clinic.
If it proves out in the clinic, and the really exciting aspect is that it's been in clinic now in phase 1. It's currently in phase 2 development, but in the phase 1 setting, which was in this chronic urticaria patients as well, it has actually already demonstrated that by the first, in a single dose, by the first measurement of your IgE levels, you get down to below limit of measurable levels for IgE, which is where you want to be to optimize clinical efficacy. And you can keep it at that level. It stays down even with that single dose up to and beyond for 14 weeks.
Now, what would be the comparative to that with Xolair? Are you seeing a respike in the IgE over a certain period, after a certain period of time?
That's right, exactly. Okay. So with the therapies that currently strictly have a neutralization aspect to it, we see it come down and then we see it go back up, start to go back up pretty much right away. And that's been one of the challenges for patients, because what that translates into is increased number of doses or increased frequency of dosing.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask. What's the standard of care now? How often is the dosing?
It depends on your IgE level at baseline as well as your weight. And so there's what we call a nomogram, a table that your doctor will use to determine what kind of dosing you need. But then you can imagine that people with high IgE baseline levels, for instance, which happens a lot in food allergy in particular, that they actually fall off of the nomogram. So it's not approved above a certain level. So it's either that they have a heavy burden of shots and frequent shots, or they're not served at all.
So if Q221 is successful in let's just say worst case scenario, reducing the frequency of shots, that improves patient quality of life. I mean, would that be significant enough, do you think, for a drug that would be marketable?
Definitely for a drug that would be marketable. And there's others that are after that, actually. So there's, half-life extended versions of Xolair, for instance, that will get you there. Yeah. We were interested in hunting for more. We really, as I said, were drug hunters looking for transformatively, meaningfully different therapies. We think this has that potential because of the dual mechanism, and we're looking for not just more convenience, but greater depth as well as durability of responses in these diseases. What we like to think of as the potential for even a functional cure. So if you have allergic asthma, atopic dermatitis, chronic urticaria, some of these more complex diseases where IgE plays a part of the mechanism, we hope that we can really decrease your symptoms to the point that you feel like you're symptom free.
Yeah, so you don't have it anymore.
Exactly, on a given day. In the case of food allergy, we hope that we can control the disease to the extent that you can have what we think of as food freedom, that you don't risk the potential for severe reaction relative to having an accidental exposure to your food. And you can imagine, because this affects not just adults, but also kids, children, that parents could have a great deal more peace of mind. Yeah,
I have 4 kids, and thankfully none of them have any food allergies that we know of. But you raised a question in my mind thinking about this. Does the drug have the ability to treat, the hypothesis is potentially all food allergies? It wouldn't have to be a peanut allergy specific or a seafood allergy specific. The same mechanism would cover all of those allergies.
That's exactly right.
That's amazing. Tell us what the next data update is. When can we expect it? I believe you guided for second half of the year, and what is that data readout?
Yeah, that's exactly right as well. So we have a number of really important milestones coming up. We are submitting what are called INDs, which enable us to study the drug with the US FDA. And we have a couple of INDs, one for 221 CUE-111, one for another program at CUE called 401 that are coming up as milestones. For CUE-221, it's the phase 2 data in CSU patients that's coming out in the second half of the year. That'll be incredibly exciting. It'll help us understand whether this dual mechanism is playing out as we saw the potential for in the phase 1 study in terms of that rapid decrease in IgE level and the ability to keep it down below limit of quantification or below measurable limits for that period of time translates into improved depth as well as durability of clinical response in CSU. We believe that's possible because of the surgical excision, if you will, of this pathway in that disease state that will really be able to be the best therapeutic to test that, the contribution of the pathway to the disease state. But
is there any limitations in terms of weight or baseline levels that you can deal with? Because you said that's one of the drawbacks of Xolair. There's kind of no guide on that.
Yeah, we'll have to have this data set will help to further inform that as well. But we're hoping that won't be the case. That we have the potential now to not be IgE or weight based to even consider fixed dosing. And so more to come. As we learn more.
So you get that data second half of the year, that should give you the line of sight to move into food allergy, right? That's what you would start a phase 2B study in more broadly in food allergy.
That's right. So food allergy is the place where the unmet need is just tremendous.
Yeah.
In the last decade, there's been over a 300% rise in the prevalence of and incidence of food allergy. On the order of 30 million Americans are affected by it. About half of those, adults and children, will have severe reactions within their lifetime. So it's a big and growing problem. So because it is IgE is very, very central to that disease state, we think that it's the perfect place for a mechanism like this to go. And because we think that this mechanism has the potential to, not be limited by IgE or by weight, that makes it an obvious place that has tremendous unmet need to test.
In those instances of acute reactions, what's the standard of care treatment? Is it just an EpiPen? Or
hopefully you don't come to that, but that's right. If you end up with a very severe reaction where you're actually having systemic effects like airway effects, blood pressure, et cetera, life-threatening effects, then you're at your EpiPen.
Yeah. So you could possibly alleviate that burden of always carrying one around for some of these people potentially.
I don't know that I would. We'd have to have a lot more experience. It's like when I mean food freedom, I also want to say that I also want to be clear that patients shouldn't go out and eat the foods that they're allergic to on purpose.
Fair enough.
They should still continue to avoid them. They probably should still continue to, as a doctor, I'll tell you, they should still continue to carry their EpiPens.
You painted a very optimistic picture for me. I was just leaning into it, so you blame that on me.
I love it, and I love it. I do. This is the freedom from those accidental exposures. Hopefully, from either at a minimum buying you time to get to your EpiPen or the ER. Hopefully, alleviating your need to ever go there. But obviously,
still a huge potential improvement if the data plays out the way it looks like.
That's the vision.
So now let's pivot to 401 because you said that was the other drug that you saw tremendous potential in. Let's talk through that. What's the mechanism there in as layman's terms as we can get?
I mean, it's the high level concepts are pretty straightforward. So for 221, I'll say I think of it as, the proven pathway with a single central mechanism that we understand well and we know how we're trying to improve upon that. 401 I think of as very high science. It's based on, and frankly, at this juncture, Nobel Prize winning science. And it's been validated sort of in terms of a target with other really great publications from great universities in the recent past as well. And so the bottom line is that there are cells within our bodies that help us to regulate our immune system called regulatory T cells. And that we have the potential to shift our immune reaction towards these regulatory T cells in the context of autoimmune disease to try to utilize them as a therapeutic. And scientifically, we've understood that when we have two particular signals together that we have a better chance of making the right kind of regulatory T cells that helps us with this phenomenon.
So in the case of autoimmune disease, just so I can understand the balance and imbalance, when you have an autoimmune disease, is it an overreactive regulatory T cells?
That's
because
right.
then it starts attacking the body when there's really no threat, or?
It's autoimmune, meaning that your own immune system is reacting against your own cells or your own tissues. And it's not the regulatory T cells, but your normal T cells that we call effector cells.
Got it.
And so in this instance, we can actually shift your effector cell population to become regulatory T cells, which then dampen the immune system, dampen the inflammatory response, if you will.
Okay.
And the two pathways that we have to put together, I think of this as high science because it's taken a lot for us to understand them. It's taken a lot for us to understand how to drug them as well. Each of them is quite powerful. Each of them can be toxic to your body, in immune systems. And so we've had to attenuate or dampen our ability to, in order to think about how to utilize them as drugs. And so 401 is engineered by CUE, world-class scientists and protein engineers. And I think of it as precision immunoengineering, both of these molecules in that regard, very much designed for purpose.
Yeah. Is 401 the same framework, the IL-2 framework as the 100 series, or is it? It is.
It is. So this is CUE has developed a platform on which it can put different active ends, if you will, on the backbone of a piece of an antibody. Okay. Which carries it around. It improves the half-life, allows it to be more medicinal-like in quality. And so in this instance, it's an IL-2 attenuated signal as well as a TGF-beta signal. TGF-beta has been particularly difficult to drug because it is so toxic to systems. And so in this instance, they're both attenuated to the point that it's a question of avidity. When you have enough of them close enough to each of their types of receptors that they can bind, then they actually signal. Okay. But otherwise, they shouldn't signal willy-nilly, if you will. Yeah. I can't believe I'm using that word, but
it works. It helps the non-scientist to understand.
Right. And so hopefully that specificity allows it to target the right microenvironment, the right cells, and signal, and then and help downregulate the immune
So what's
response.
the next catalyst for 401?
401 very excitingly has lots of great preclinical models that show that it seems to be doing what we hope it would be doing biologically. It's biologically active and acting in relevant ways in those systems. And so the next step is really to go to humans. We're filing an IND for the first in human studies, which we expect to begin this year.
Okay. So a lot of catalysts on the horizon. You have other assets in the pipeline, some of them that are partnered already. I believe the 100 series is with Immunoscape, and that's in oncology.
That's right.
500 is with Boehringer.
That's right.
And what is that indication for? Remind me again.
Also oncology, that's a B-cell depleting series. Okay. And that's been great. BI's been very, very happy with that relationship, is my understanding, and it's been a source of milestones, which has been very handy. So do you look,
strategically as a drug hunter, what is the best setup for you? Do you like to get to a certain phase and then find a partner? Are you trying to get to possibly a phase 2 registrational trial and then find a partner? How do you strategically think about these assets now that you have two that you think have tremendous potential, one very early stage and one that's maturing?
Yeah, the way we think about this, and this is, sort of company building philosophy and strategy, at least the way I always think about it is you don't build something to sell it. You build something, to assume that you are in charge of it for the life cycle. Yeah. And that's the way you really create value. And so that's how we're viewing this. That said, if you build something and are creating value, then the opportunity to have that bought along the way, if that ultimately serves patients the best because it has the potential to get to them faster, accelerate the number of indications, put it in the hands of a bigger company that can, mobilize more forces around it. Of course, that's something that would be a good outcome for everyone.
I mean, there's precedent in the industry, right? There was a recent deal, if I remember correctly, with Glaxo and RAPT.
There are a couple of recent deals.
Yeah. How do you think, do those reflect fair value for what those molecules were or are, and in relation to, 221, where, you're trading now, I think the company on a fully diluted basis is like 190, 200 million, depending on where the stock price is on any given day, versus a $2+ billion, I think was the RAPT deal valuation. Right.
So I think the two deals both have been on the order of $2 billion, and they were both M&A.
Yeah.
And so that really sets the benchmark and gives you a sense of the enthusiasm within the context of this area. I think that we're tracking pretty much right exactly where RAPT was tracking. Okay. So the story is very analogous. They also had a phase 2 study in CSU running with their China partner, and the market cap was about where we are before they flipped the card.
Yeah, no, that's good to know. What keeps you up at night as the CEO? This is a question I love to ask, because in most companies it's execution. But when it comes to biotech, you're not in control of all the execution. It's the science side. So really, where are the sides of the road that scare you, that you don't want to go off the side? Like, what keeps you up at night?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's maintaining optionality. Okay. I feel really good about the science aspect of it. I think that, again, we start from the foundation of wanting to make sure that we're working on something we think will be transformatively different. That's our hurdle for bringing something in, for putting these programs together now, for building CUE into an immunology company. And so the science behind both of the lead programs is incredibly exciting and very sound. Of course, we have to all be concerned and vigilant about execution as well. And I think ensuring that all your children go to college is our job. Right. Yeah. And so that's what, I want to make sure I'm paying attention to.
So let's extend the children analogy. Any other children being added potentially to the family? Is that something you'd consider, or you really focus on these two assets right now?
I think we definitely have, we've been in existence as this transformation of CUE for a month. And so we definitely have our plates full at the moment. Yeah. But that having been said, we're always looking for the next transformative medicine. As I said earlier, we see maybe one or two in a given year. Yeah. And so you never want to not be looking, because you never know when or where that will happen. Yeah.
So keeping your eyes open for potential opportunities. This is typically the point of the interview where I ask, what do you think the upside is for the specific company? But I want to take a little bit of a slight turn with you, because you see and seek out such transformative potential molecules. What drives you? What's the passion to do this? Because I feel like it's not just monetary, or it's probably not monetary. That's a byproduct of you doing what you like to do.
Thank you for that. Yeah. And, absolutely. I think that we in this business have a tremendous privilege of being able to work on things that make a big difference to our global society. And what I have seen in all of the colleagues that I've worked with is that sense of mission and vision that drives the people in the industry. And we're incredibly lucky in that way, that when we're successful, to your point, then we have something that of value to share with society as well. But it's really that sense of being able to make the world, frankly, truly make the world a better place, and ease suffering that is what gets us up every morning.
Listen, I appreciate that more than you know. I know that CUE, the 100 series, has done that in a lot of ways for a very nasty type of cancer that just seems to be recurrent. I know there's plenty of families out there struggling with food allergies that they would love for something to make it easier to deal with. So I wish you the best of luck. Luck doesn't play in science, so we'll go along the lines of I wish that the data continues on trend, and would love to have you back on the upside again when you've got some news to report and some important developments.
Thank you so much, Lou.
Thanks for taking the time.
It's been a pleasure.